Good evening, good morning, good night, good second breakfast, whenever you are, wherever you are. My name is Laura González, and I welcome you to Lunatic Mondays on Circle podcast. Tonight, we have a guest that I'm very happy to have on the show today for reasons that you will find out. Her name is Deborah Blake. She is the author of 19 books on modern witchcraft, including the Eclectic Witch's Book of Shadows, the Little Book of Cat Magic, and Llewellyn's Little Book of Spellcraft, as well as the acclaimed Everyday Witch Tarot, Everyday Witch Oracle, and Everyday Witches Familiars Oracle. Deborah lives in upstate New York with numerous cats who supervise all her activities, magical and mundane. She can be found at deborahblakeauthor.com. And that's Deborah with an H at the end and the whole Deborah. And I'm very happy to have you here today, Deborah. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm glad to be back. I always have so much fun talking to you.
It's fun to have you, and I love the style of you seem very honest all the time and very like no nonsense and just go with the flow,
That
and I really
that
appreciate
pretty
that.
much sums it up. Yeah, what you see is what you get.
Yeah.
There's no extras here, which is sometimes good, sometimes bad, but yeah, I am pretty straightforward.
Yes, yes, I love that. And it's been a while since you was here at the show. I cannot even remember which title we invite you
I
for.
don't know either. When you have 19 of them, it's like, which one did we talk about last? I don't
Which one of
know.
my 19 children? So for people who are watching this video, if you're listening, worry not, within an hour by 8 o'clock tonight, the video will be out and you can come back and watch us on the video. And I was telling Deborah about that beautiful, beautiful background that she has, that are some covers, not all covers, of her books and publications. Mostly those are the Llewellyn ones, I think. And we were talking about accomplishments and displaying such accomplishments. And what a life, Deborah. What a life. What a beautiful accomplishment. I mean, 19 books. I can barely write an email. So to me, it's like, oh
Oh,
my
well, I
goodness.
don't write very good emails, so if that's it, and then I have to go back and edit them because I'm sort of feel like, oh, the words aren't right. No, this is I'll have to do this again.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that's just the nonfiction. I also write fiction, and I think I've probably written about 20 novels and novellas. So yeah, and what's really funny about it is I started pretty late. My first book from Llewellyn, Circle, Covenant, Grove, came out in 2007, and I wrote it in 2005 when I was 45. So, I didn't start doing this when I was 20. I thought about doing it when I was 20, but I didn't have the self-confidence to do it until I was 45. So, and I am now 66, just recently. So yeah, it's been a lot crammed into a sort of a short period of time. But once the writing bug hits you,
I'm amazed because um, I'm trying to think, right? What is one thing that I could do like that, right? What is the one thing that I could do 19 or 20 or 50? And for me, it's teaching, right? I can sit and teach,
yeah,
you know.
and I love teaching too. I teach online classes.
Yeah.
I actually, many thousands of years ago, had my certification as a secondary English ed teacher. I love to teach. It takes a lot of energy though, and I am not a high energy person because I have chronic illnesses. So I don't do as much of it as I'd like to. I used to make jewelry. I also used to run an artist cooperative shop. I did a lot of things. Um, but these days I mostly focus on, you know, trying to keep up with the writing and herding the cats.
And that's literal herding the cats. Because how
Oh,
many
it
cats?
is actually. I have 5 cats that eat two different foods in five different rooms. So I do, in fact, actually herd cats. I do not
Wow.
have to have like a whip or anything, though. They know where their food goes.
Good,
Uh,
good.
but yeah, when I used to run the artist shop, it had 50 artists, and that was just like herding cats. It
So
was
what I'm
this.
hearing is that you are creative. You create, right? You create your lessons, you create your books, you create jewelry, you create art. How do you discover, or when do you discover that you have this
Well,
art
I've
vein
I've
in you?
always wanted to write. I mean, when I was in the sixth grade, I wrote my first novel, which was probably 5 pages long, in the back of math class because I wasn't very good at math. I really wanted to write. And for a very long time, my lack of self-confidence got in my way. I just didn't think it was going to be good enough. Or I would send out a story and it would get rejected. And I'd go, woe is me. And I wouldn't send out anything for another 3 years, that kind of thing. And then I got to be older and a little bit tougher and learned some of the lessons that we learn along the way. One of which is that rejection is not personal.
Mm-hmm.
It feels personal to you when somebody says, no, I don't want your book. But no, that just means they have 200 other people's books sitting on their desk. And for whatever reason, yours just was not their cup of tea or didn't fit the things they were looking for. And once I figured that out, that helped. The other thing was I had never finished anything. I started novel after novel after novel. The nonfiction was kind of an accident. I had absolutely no intention of writing nonfiction. And then the gods, as they will, came to me one day. I had been leading my own coven for a year after 6.5 years, in somebody else's coven, became a high priestess, started this very small group. And we had done a year's worth of practice together, full moons, new moons, the holidays. And I thought, gee, I wish there had been a book for me as a newbie high priestess that
Mm-hmm.
told me how to do all this stuff. And basically, the gods went, yeah. So I wrote that book, and it was supposed to be a one off.
Mm-hmm.
But what it taught me was that I could no longer use the excuse that I never finished anything to not finish other things.
Mm-hmm.
So as I started working on the writing and sending things out and getting lots of rejections, I thought of another Llewellyn book, and that led us to today, basically, where I have this dual career, which is sort of unusual. Not a lot of people do nonfiction and fiction. Some do. And then
Mm-hmm.
of course there's, the tarot decks and the oracle decks, which
Mm-hmm.
um, you know, again, that was not part of the plan. But that's actually probably those are the most enjoyable projects to work on.
Mm-hmm.
I've been very fortunate in working with Elizabeth Alba, who's the illustrator that I use, and she's just a joy to collaborate with, which is not something that you. Hello, Diana. That's Diana.
The cat on the shelf.
Yes, well, as long as she doesn't stroll across the keyboard, we're fine. She does like to be part of things. So, yeah, I mean, I've always been creative, but it took me a long time to sort of find my niche. I actually started making jewelry before I became a writer, in part because I was seriously ill for a long time and I was on disability and I couldn't do much. And a friend of mine who was a jewelry maker taught me how to do this so that instead of when people said, oh, what do you do? Instead of saying I'm disabled, which was not a label that was not what I wanted to put out to the universe.
Mm-hmm.
I could say, oh, I'm a jewelry maker. And,
Mm-hmm.
eventually I did a lot of non-traditional stuff, got better enough so that I could go out into the world,
Mm-hmm.
and then had this, artist cooperative shop where I could sell my jewelry.
Mm-hmm.
And then the writing came along and sort of ate my life. I don't know.
I think it is wonderful, right? Because you have so much to say and so many things to teach. And I always chalk it up to, oh, well, me, Laura González, I come from oral tradition, so everything I do is oral, and that's why I do podcasts. And you want to learn from me, there's 15 years of podcasts, go listen to them. But I think that part of it is this self-fulfilled prophecy of, well, I have so much to say, I don't know where to start. Well, you definitely have so much to say. You have 19 books. So there is a place to start and there is a place to
And you
finish.
just have to pick one. I mean,
Yeah.
that's that, I always have, a couple of projects that I want to work on, and I don't have time to do them all, and I'm not good at working on multiple things at the same time. I'm very linear. So if I
Hmm.
start working on something, I want to keep working on it. And so I listen for the one that's yelling the loudest. Yeah,
Hmm.
which one says this is the thing the world needs right now.
Hmm.
Um, Also, of course, once you've written 19 books, the other thing is like, well, what haven't I talked about yet? What have I not written about? Because I am at the point now where the things that are left are things that, frankly, I don't know enough about to write about. Somebody said, well, you haven't written a book on astrology. And I'm like, yeah, because I know nothing about astrology. I'm a
Same.
Taurus. That's my knowledge of astrology is I'm a Taurus. Yeah, that's a really short book. It's
I'm a Taurus. I
like
feel
a
the same way.
postcard.
When it goes to astrology, I think it's so math heavy, and then when I tell people you have to memorize so many things, and then they look at me and they go, "You read tarot. What about memorizing is a problem when you were a tarot reader?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you're right, but it's sometimes I guess is what
Well,
we're
but it
paid
should be
for, right?"
fun. I mean, you want it to be fun. If
Yes.
it's not fun, if you don't enjoy it,
Yeah.
then find something else to do. I mean, if I wake up some morning and say, I don't really feel like writing anymore,
Mm-hmm.
which I did. I made jewelry for 30 years. And then I sort of went, you know what? I don't really feel like doing this anymore. It's like, look, beads, more beads. There's some beads. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was one of those things. And it's possible I will run out of things to say. Um, I'm
Not yet.
oh, I don't know. Or run out of things that anybody wants to pay me to say, because that's I mean, I did suggest a book to Llewellyn and they went, nah. And we don't think that would sell well enough, which is that's their business. That's
Mm-hmm.
that's what they're there to do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, I am actually working on a Cranky Crone book right now, because I don't know if you're familiar with my Cranky Crone persona from online, but when I hit 65 last year, I basically decided to embrace my inner cranky crone, because I am cranky, so freaking
Mm-hmm.
cranky about the world and everything else. And I'm definitely a crone. Yeah, this used to be dark brown. It's not anymore. Um, and so, you think I'm Deborah Blake is a straight talker. The cranky crone is really a straight talker. And so I am working on something that's, very different from the stuff that I've done already. It's like an advice book with witchcraft twists in it and humor.
Yeah.
Because for me, you know, it's humor makes the cranky advice a little bit easier to deal
Mm-hmm.
with.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm working on another novel, so
I think, thank you for bringing the Cranky Crone. I've seen the videos, but I'm not like very familiar. I've seen them
right.
pass by when I'm scrolling, and I knew that that was a character.
I am the cranky crone.
Yeah.
Don't argue with me.
Okay.
There, there she
That's
is.
it.
That's
That's
her.
it.
And she's not me. I'm not her. It's just the cranky
It's a
crone.
character, yeah. But I think, and thank you for bringing this up. I've been saying, and I've been saying it very loudly for what is now 15 months, right? I'm a brown indigenous person. I don't have the privilege to not speak about the evils of the last year and a half. Nor do I have the privilege, nor do I have the lack of courage. I have to talk about it. And how are people not angry is the question
Oh,
number
some
one.
of us are very, very, very angry. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just, and that was, I made a conscious decision. I had always tried in past years before things got completely insane and out of hand to not be super political online because I didn't want to offend my readers. Blah, blah, blah. And when things got really bad, I just said, screw it. If
Yep.
I'm going to offend people, they don't have to buy my books, and I'm okay with that. Anybody who really finds me saying this is crazy and unacceptable to be offensive, I don't want them reading my books anyway,
Yeah.
and I don't need the money bad enough to shut my mouth and sit in a corner. Yes, I have some privilege that you do not necessarily have because, you know, but I'm also a woman and they're going after women like crazy. I'm a woman who does not have the name she was born with. Blake is my married name from my ex-husband years ago, but I never changed it back because I didn't love my original name, which, by the way, was Levine. So then there's the Jew thing in there too.
Mm-hmm.
And, I did learn from history what happens if you do not speak up when they
Yep.
come for your neighbors.
Yes.
So, yeah, I have been as supportive and loud as possible. I share things. I do, especially as my cranky crone, go on and complain about things. But I am not, going to make any secret of the fact that I think that what's happening now is terrifying and disgusting and not the country that I thought I was living in at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
And that's also depressing as hell. It was depressing the first time around. This time around, I'm just like, how are there people who even. And one of the reasons why I wanted to put out the Deities book, but before knowing we were going to get this bad, but even, since COVID, since all of the things that have been happening, I know that people really feel the need for faith, the
Mm-hmm.
need
Mm-hmm.
for to be able to reach out and touch something or someone that is greater than them that they can call on and just say, lend me strength. Help me be brave enough to put my voice out in the world, or however it is, help me get up in the morning and cope with this after I've watched the news. You
Yeah.
know, and so for me, because witchcraft is and my belief in God and goddess is part of how I do cope with things, I wanted to make it easier for other people too. I wanted, all the books that I put out are basically there to help people. They're to spread information, and you know my books are not big, thick, complicated, esoteric tomes.
Mm-hmm.
They are simple, practical. This is how you integrate your spiritual beliefs with your everyday life in 5 minutes, if 5 minutes is all you've got. Because that's who I am. That's the kind of witch I am. But also because I know the reality is most of us don't have much time. We don't have much energy, but we still have the need and the desire to connect with spirit. And so
And so,
that's all my books are basically that.
and I think some of us are tired to be talked down into
Oh,
learning something.
absolutely.
But I
Absolutely.
wanna pull back on the cranky crone just for 1 second, and how it all ties together, right? Because, and I will love to hear your thoughts on how the invisibilization of women of certain age and the fact that we discard women of certain age and their wisdom ties with the bleep show in which we are living at this moment. Why is it so important? I know why, but I want to hear your opinion. Why is it so important that we magnify, put the lantern, the spotlight on women of certain age, especially the cranky crones?
Well, our culture. the American culture is one of the very few cultures that does not respect older wisdom. If you look at other cultures, most of them have, you know, the nana, the yaya, whoever it is, the respected, usually female elder of a village or the neighborhood or wherever, that people will go to for advice. Oh, I like this man, but he doesn't like me back. What should I do? Or I can't get along with my parents. What should I do? And not here. Here, yes, you get to be of a certain age and you do become invisible. It's a remarkable thing. I had heard people talk about that, and until I became a woman of a certain age, 40-ish, say, I did not really understand that. And the weird thing is, it has nothing to do with how you look. You can be gorgeous. You could be, I think some of it is biological. I think there's something about men in particular, because we're mostly talking, women are not necessarily invisible to each other. And in fact, I think, make a greater effort to see each other because we know we're invisible to men, and especially to men in power who, just replace us with somebody younger. I don't know. But I think some of it is that there is some biological thing that says, oh, she can't make babies anymore. She is of no use to society. They're like, well, I can do a lot of other things. I did not, in fact, at any point in my life, make a baby. I raised other people's babies. I have a stepdaughter I have raised since she was 1, and I have helped other people raise their babies. It turns out that's this lifetime's role. But yes, the invisible thing can sometimes be an advantage, though, because if they don't see you, you can say or do whatever you want. If they dismiss you as powerless because they think you're powerless, I mean, there are some women out there who are making some pretty big waves. Yay. Voted for some of them, but I think we need to lean into our power of as women of a certain age, and we also need to share our wisdom, such as it is, with anyone who wants it. You can't force it down anybody's throat. There are plenty of people who do not want wisdom of any kind, but for the people who are looking for it, I think it behooves us as the crones, or the women on the cusp of becoming crones, to embrace our own power and our own voice and not let anybody shut us up.
Yeah, absolutely. When I was younger, 12 years ago, in my 40s, I'm 50, I'm going to be 53 in a couple months. And, learning about witchcraft and Wicca and how United States practice neo-paganism and all that, and, becoming a crone and all that. Because I never birthed a child and I have never raised anything that other than my hand, right? Um, Often and repeatedly.
Yes,
And
I have raised certain fingers of my hand quite often recently. Just saying.
read between the lines,
Yes,
friends.
exactly.
So I was wondering, and I was asking one of the elders at one of the crones at Circle Sanctuary, what makes you a crone? Because I also stopped bleeding very young, and I was in my 40s and I didn't realize that I have gone through menopause.
Right.
It just passed me over, and that's it. And I thought I was going to die or something because I have zero symptoms. I didn't have anything that let me know
No, you should be so lucky.
I
Yeah.
was very blessed. Thank you, goddess. So so I was asking this elder, Anna is her name. I was asking Anna, so what makes you, because I don't bleed anymore, but I don't think I'm a crone. I don't have children, but I don't think I'm a crone. I don't have I have a grandchild by love, but it's not like we are like this, that I'm abuelita and all that. So what makes you a crone? And her answer was something that I hold dear, because she said, when you're done creating, when you're done raising things, when all you do is kick your feet up and shared your wisdom, that's when you're a crone. And I was like, well, I guess I will never be a crone, so that's fine. But then on our indigenous traditions, every 13 years, you begin a new stage. So
Oh, that's neat.
from 0 to 13, you're a child. From 13 to 26, you're on the way to becoming an adult. At 26, you are an adult. And then at 39, you are a grown adult, a wise adult. And then at 52, you're an elder. Period. And so my group, my community, they started calling me the elder at 51, and I'm like, wait, I have one more year to go. Plus, I feel too young to be the elder. And now that it's been a year and a half, when your community bestow that on you, right? It's like, whoa, it's a huge responsibility. But it's also like we can do whatever we want, which is a two-edged sword,
Yep, absolutely.
right? But it's also such a beautiful responsibility to be there and like you say, right, to be loud, to be direct, to be honest, and to be also learning. Because the thing, Deborah, is so you go 13, 26, 39, 52, which 52 sends you back to zero. So it's like you're a young adult, an elder,
Mm,
but with some of the qualities of the 0 to 13. So it's learning, it's curiosity, it's finding a new life, or what is the second act gonna be
right.
like?
And I think a lot of people go through that sometimes when they retire, when they have time suddenly, they're not focused on a job, they're done raising their family if they've been raising a family, and they actually get to focus on themselves. Women especially often spend their earlier years focused on other people.
Yep.
Um, and some of that is an innate nurturing quality. Some of that is just, our societal expectations,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. And, I don't think there's a set time when you're a crone. I think you're a crone when you say you're a crone. For me, when my hair started being more silver, for a long time I had sort of, you can see there's still some brown in there,
Mm-hmm,
there's
mm-hmm.
streaks, but it also was basically, I said, for me, 65 just feels like the crone year.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't have anything to do with retirement or anything like that. I mean, I left my day job because of long COVID, not because of any retirement age. And I don't expect to stop writing, so I'm not retired from that. It was more like I had finally grown into myself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's a process. There's no one day when you wake up and go, okay, I wasn't a crone
Mm-hmm.
yesterday, and today I'm a crone. Oh, now I am wise. I mean, I'm wiser. But yes, I am constantly learning about myself, about the world, sometimes about people sucking way more than I thought they
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, you don't ever want to stop learning and growing. That's stagnation, and life and forward movement is all about change and growth. You cannot, you know, I know I have some friends who have hit a certain age and stuck. They're like, this is as far as I'm going. And first of all, that's boring. Why? Why would you not want to ever learn anything again? And also, so you're perfect now? Yeah, there is no room for improvement whatsoever. I got whole lists of things I could improve about myself.
Right.
Make big, long lists of things that I could improve about myself. And for me, one of the things that I perceive as a part of witchcraft is, if you call yourself a witch, for me, part of that is striving always to become your own best self and
Yeah.
to tap into spirit and to deity and to your group, if you have a group, to the people around you, to whatever you can learn to become the best witch you can, but also the
Mm-hmm.
best human being you can, which is, I mean, this is also a very, Jewish thing. You're supposed to be a mensch. You're supposed to be a fully rounded human being. And, I was raised in a culture where learning is very important. This is a thing with Judaism is, it's all about being wise and knowledgeable. And I brought that part of Judaism with me. Most of the rest of it, not so much. Although I do really love good lox on a bagel. But for me, the idea that you are always learning and growing is part of witchcraft. And if you want to call yourself a witch, I hope that that includes some sort of movement and growth always.
and consistent transformation, you know.
Oh yeah. I
One
mean,
of the biggest cultural shocks that I had when I migrated to the United States, because yes, I'm a migrant, um,
lock the
was
door.
yeah, like oh my God, yeah. Um, Two things that, and it's not a critique, is culturally a significant thing, right? Here in the United States, when you're 18, you're on your own, which to me was like, what do you mean? These are children, different cultures, different way of existing.
Mhm.
But then at 50, again, we put you in a home. And not to say that Mexico don't have homes for the elderly and the disabled, but they are that. They are homes for elderly and or disabled folks
Right.
that need 24/7, and
Right.
that the
Otherwise, the
families,
family cares for them, right?
otherwise the family care for, and you have the younger ones, the 18, 19, 20-year olds taking care of grandma that is 75, 85, whatever. But I digress. Let us talk about this wonderful book, Everyday Witches Book of Deities, Ancient Gods and Modern Pagans, by the one and only Deborah Blake. Because I knew you and I need like a 3 hour podcast. Um, I love this book for many reasons.
Yeah,
I
there's
love this.
there's a special reason, special reason.
I do have special reasons for which I love this book. I got to tell a story. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, you're so welcome. So let's explain to people.
Yes.
So when I started writing this book, um, I and the subtitle is Ancient Gods for Modern Pagans. And I wanted to do, because I like to be inclusive. I really was thinking I would do a lot of different cultures. And Llewellyn, who published the book, said, "Well, we're trying really hard, and I understand this, and I don't disagree with it. We're trying really hard to let indigenous people and people from cultures other than ours tell their own stories. You know, so could you focus on, the main cultures that witchcraft and paganism have basically already co-opted their gods for many, many years. The Greeks and the Romans and the Egyptians and the Celts. And I said, sure, that's fine. But one of the things that I specifically wanted to do, because none of these are my cultures, is I wanted to find people not necessarily who came from those cultures, although some of them did, but who actively practiced um, an immersive form of, like, say, the Egyptian, or like I have a friend who is very much the Norse deities. They are they're somebody who has followed the Norse deities for many, many years, and worships those deities exclusively. And so I asked them, would you write me up something that I could add to this book that is from your point of view, so we can get a little depth that I can't give. And I had Elise Wells, who is very much a practicing Greek worshiper. She actually goes to Greece and leads these wonderful tours. And then I came to a few things like the Romans, and I didn't know anybody who worshiped Roman gods, but it turned out I did.
Little non-secret. Well, now it's gonna be a known secret.
It's in the
Obviously,
book.
because it's in the book, but it's some weird. It has been a very strange journey for me. Being Mexican from Mexico, obviously, we're colonized by the Catholics, and they strip us of our beautiful belief systems that we are now reclaiming, right? Our indigeneity and our belief systems and our teteo and so-called gods and goddesses. However, growing up, I was introduced to Fortuna when I was like 7 years old, and I've been walking the path of my life with Goddess Fortuna by my side since I was seven. Again, I'm 40, I'm 52, so you do the math. And so the first years, the first decade basically of me being active on the neo-pagan tradition in the United States, goddess tradition, etc., I focus on, you know, the pantheons that most everybody, right? Greek, Roman, etc. And then a few years back, I got my marching orders that I needed to bring the indigenous knowledge to the front. And it was not easy. It was a whole journey about getting to open that up because it was so very closed off for me. I never did it openly. So people who have met me recently, they think that I only teach the indigenous stuff. And I'm like, no, no. The whole decade before that, it was nothing but all of the other stuff. So when you so graciously invite me to be part of this, I'm like, oh yeah, because I worship Mercury and Fortuna. And the first lines that I wrote is like, how does a Mexica person end up in the Roman pantheon? I don't know, and I don't question it. I just love it. And that's a story, Deborah, that I've been trying to tell for years. And
And here it is. It's
here
in
it
the book.
is. This is I've done. Thank you, Llewellyn, and thank you to other publishing houses and people who have invited me to collaborate. I'm very pleased because I cannot write a book of my own, so I'm very pleased to collaborate, and it's a source of joy and pride. But this one in particular, and I'm not buttering your biscuit, this one in particular is very incredibly near and dear to my heart because um, they're very, I consider they're very touching stories. The lessons were hard. There were some hard pills to swallow, but the devotion is there, and actually the active altar that I have at home is for, yes, I have altars and I have my indigenous deities, and those are for my personal private practice, but the active altar that you see when you walk into my apartment, the first thing you see is Mercury and Fortuna, so it was
Well,
very important for me to tell the story.
I think, the gods had a hand in this. I would like to take credit, but, when I had the idea that it was important to have a few voices that were not my voice in this book, because I've done that once or twice in books before. Usually it's just me, blah, 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 blah. But every once in a while, I think, there's something that needs to be contributed to this book that I can't contribute. I don't have the knowledge. I don't have, the practice, whatever it is. And, I feel like being able to share multiple viewpoints opens up worlds for people. The people who read this book are not just hearing me say, oh, here's Bastet, and these are the ways you can connect with her. I mean, first of all, I start out by just talking about the cultures, and one of the things I wanted to do was not just say, okay, these are the Greeks, blah blah blah. I wanted to talk about how the deities affected that culture and people's daily lives, because for most of these cultures, you could not separate deity worship and the culture. Those were this, your day-to-day life. If you were Greek, you would have a niche in your house, and in that in that niche, there would be a statue for your household god, whoever that was. And, you might get up in the morning and, greet your ancestor deities and say, please help me have a good day, or ask for help with something in specific, or just ask them to, guard your house. You would make offerings. If you made a meal, you might leave a little piece of the meal on the altar for your household deity. There were specific holidays that were so much a part of each of these cultures that everything sort of revolved around, oh, this is this god's day and this is this goddess's day. And so I wanted to share some of that with people. And then of course I got into specific deities, and I couldn't cover all of them because there's a lot, but I tried to
Hmm.
go for the main ones. And of course I got to pick the ones I like because it's my damn book.
Yeah.
But I also wanted to sort of bookend this, starting off with what these deities meant to these ancient cultures with what they meant to practitioners today who had made these deeper connections. I don't follow a particular pantheon. I'm an eclectic witch, basically, and I do a little bit of everything. Um, I, if I had to, I mean, I often just call on God and Goddess and figure whoever's listening will pay attention, hopefully. But Hecate was my first and probably main,
Mhm.
goddess, mostly because she's she's very kick-ass, and apparently I don't pay enough attention to the lessons well enough to have one of those nice mild goddesses. I needed one of the ones that would go, yo, I told you 4 times already. How many times do I have to send you this lesson before you actually learn it? And I'd be
Mhm.
like, 5? And while I, always included God and Goddess, I've been very goddess centered in my practice, partially because, again, raised in a very male deity centered religion. Um, and a few years ago, I was doing trance work. I do hypnotherapy with a friend of mine, and who's a professional. We've been doing it for years. And Hearn showed up and basically smacked me upside the head and went, "It's time to pay more attention to the gods." And I went, "Oh, okay, so sorry." So, yep. And so I finished our session, got up, and made an altar for Hearn, and now I try and be a little bit more, you know I speak to both of them.
Mhm.
But one of the things, you're talking about your story with Fortuna and Mercury. Often the gods pick us, we don't pick them. I have
Absolutely.
a friend who was chosen by Yamaya, and she is not a person of color, and so she doesn't talk about it a lot because she doesn't want to be criticized. But my take on that is, I'm sorry, if deity chooses you, what are you going to do? Say, oh, no thank you?
Yeah.
And she had intense dreams. There was no question that she was chosen, and I've done rituals with her, and I have felt Yamaya in those rituals
Mhm.
because she is so present in my friend's life. And so one of the things I talk about in this book is that, yes, you can go seeking deity. Absolutely. That's what I did. But you also want to stay open to signs, to messages, to, are you seeing crows everywhere? Well, which
Yep.
deities are associated with crows? There's a number of them, but if there are certain signs, or if you have a dream and a deity shows up, or if you're doing a completely unrelated hypnotherapy session and you
Something
go
comes
on
through.
and you go on a journey, and at the end of that journey, a deity shows up and says, well, pay attention, because gods don't like rejection any better than the rest of us, and they don't usually ask twice.
Mhm.
So, and the other thing that I mention in the book is you don't necessarily work intensely with the same god forever.
Exactly.
Deity, sometimes with these phases of life that you were talking about, Sometimes if you are in a certain phase of your life, you need, to have a really deeper connection with one deity or a set of deities. And then you hit another phase, and it's not like you're going, oh, no, thank you. I don't want to have anything to do with you anymore. But it may be that it's time to open the door to listening to another voice. Maybe the lessons you need to learn are going to come from someplace else.
Yeah. I've learned that it is very incredibly human and silly to say, I don't work with that deity. It's like, what do you mean? Because being Mexican from Mexico and working actively on decolonization, I never want, and this is going to be a shock for a lot of people. I never wanted to have anything to do with the Virgin of Guadalupe. I'm like, that is a tool of colonization. It was utilized to strip people of their beliefs and their way of life. And I used to even curse the name and whatever. And then, and then she came into my life a couple of times when I'm doing work for others. Because when you're a witch and you heal and you help other people, these deities are going to show up for the people that you're working with. But as the vessel, the messenger, you're the one that needs to see it. And not to go overly long into this, the last time that I was doing work, um, there is a mural here in Chicago in the neighborhood of Pilsen, which is predominantly Mexican. And there is this huge mural of the Virgin of Guadalupe. And she's looking down at the people crossing the river, right? Protecting the people. And I'm doing a meditation, and she appears to be that image, the one on the mural, looks at me like how you look at your children when you're tired of their shit. And she's giving me that look. And then I hear the words in English saying, I'm an immigrant too, you know?
Oh, I just got chills.
And at that moment, I said, thank you, right? Because there's so much on those words. I'm getting so emotional by telling you.
Oh yeah,
Because
no,
this
it
is a deity that I didn't believe on, that I rejected, that I despised, you know, I was seeing this deity with my human eyes. And when I opened myself up, she said those very words. And she gave me the look, like the
yeah,
I'm tired of your shit look. But then she said, I'm an immigrant too, you know? And there's so much.
that's amazing. That's, you know, and one of the things that I think we learn as we get older is that how we look at things comes a lot from our experience. It comes from the limitations we put on ourselves. And sometimes, if you're lucky enough to get a little older and a little wiser, your eyes get opened and you suddenly realize that there were things you were looking at like this
Yeah.
when you really needed to look at them like this, that you were limiting your own ability to see things in people, in nature, in deity, because you had made up your mind at some point. But you can unmake up your mind. You can open your mind. You can open your heart. You can open spirit. And one of the things, because I struggle with faith. Well, we all struggle with faith. The people who say they don't struggle with faith are probably not being honest to themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I mean, that doesn't mean they don't have it, but faith is not necessarily easy. And I don't think it's supposed to be easy. you know, like anything else of value in our lives, faith is something we have to put some effort into in order to get things out of it. You don't worship deity just so they can give you stuff. Oh,
Exactly.
please give me the winning lottery ticket. And
Mm-mm.
by the way, if that worked, I would not be working so hard. So, no, good luck with that one. But we also have to give back. The deities do not just give us things and not expect something in return. They may just expect our attention and our respect. They may expect prayers. They may expect service. And for me, that is a big part of my practice, is being of service to others. It's
Mm-hmm.
why I write the books. It's why, when I took my dedication as a high priestess, for me, that meant the same thing as, say, the vows of a priest or, you know, a minister. It means that I now partially belong to my community, that I have a responsibility to my community. Somebody sends me an email or a message, I answer it.
Mm-hmm.
The answer may be no,
Yeah.
but unless something is truly obnoxious and out of line or generated by AI, which these days a lot of it's just that. But
Yep.
if somebody reaches out to me and says, I have a question, I feel like it is part of the God's expectation of me that I will take a few minutes to give to people, because people gave to me when I was young and learning.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes around. That is one of the things about becoming an elder. You're paying forward
Exactly.
what was given to you. All of this knowledge that I learned, and yes, some of it was research I did specifically for this book. I didn't know all the things about all the deities when I started writing the book, but a lot of it is stuff that I learned from my first high priestess or from my friends who practice with deities. You know, the knowledge is there, but you have to be willing to be open to it. And so I put this book out so that it would be a little bit easier for everybody who doesn't have time to do the research
Mm-hmm.
themselves. I did it for you. You're welcome.
And it's a wonderful book. And for people that don't want to read a whole book or think it's too dense or whatever, I'm telling you, you all know I am not a good as a reader as I probably need to be. Um, it's a very easy read. It's not dense. It's not super heavy, and it's also a great reference, right? Because if you just want to, what was that about Bassett, or what was that about Hickty, or you're gonna find it there.
And
Um,
that's part of the purpose is, I have bookshelves filled with reference books on magic, on witchcraft and whatever. And you should have seen me when I was writing this book. I had stacks of books sitting on the couch next to me while I had my laptop on my lap and two cats on my head or whatever, trying to, like, okay, in this book, this is the bit I need. In this book, this is the bit that I need. I got a little bit of information online, not very much, because you cannot depend on what you find online. And even some of the older books, I had to be careful, because one of the things that happened as Wicca became a thing in this country, and it wasn't anything anybody did on purpose with malice, but there would be the experts who would put some information out, and they'd say, oh, this deity, this, or, this stone is good for that, whatever it was. And all of us who came after them would read their books and go, oh, so and so said this, they're a trusted authority. I'm going to. And some of what they put out was wrong. It was just, and again, not a thing people did on purpose to mislead. They either made stuff up that sounded good to them, or they got misinformation initially. Who knows? But there were many authors who came after, including me,
mhm.
who used these people as references. And thankfully, I have a fabulous editor at Llewellyn, Alicia Gallup. She's a goddess herself. And she would, when I put in the manuscript and said, here you go, she wrote back and went, that's not right. Go look that up somewhere other than this book. I know exactly where you got this because everybody sends this in to me and that's not right. So hopefully this book actually has more accurate information, and you don't have to look through the giant stack of books
Yeah.
or the 47 things on the internet that I had to look through. And Wikipedia is great, also not always accurate, you
Yeah.
know. So yes, now if you're like, well, what about Inanna? She's in here.
Yeah.
And so it is meant to be, in part, yes, and absolutely meant to be a reference book, but also one of the things people tell me, especially newer witches, is they don't know where to start. You know, I know I want to worship a goddess and a god, but how do I know which ones?
Hmm.
And so that's part of what this is for, is first of all, you can figure out if a particular culture resonates with you, or if, like me, you want to take bits and pieces of things. And, in the back, there's something that says, okay, for deities that are associated with the sea, the ocean, and the water. And so you're like, okay, I'm going to the ocean. I want to make an offering to an ocean deity, and you can look up the ones that are there and see which one feels like the right one for you. So there's a lot of different approaches, but this is supposed to be a way for the people. I mean, and I hope it's useful for people who've been practicing for years. I use it as reference myself because I don't know about you, but I can't remember nothing. Um,
And
I
it's hard
like,
to remember all the gods that ever existed. Like, come on.
well, and especially if it's one that I haven't worked with a lot,
Hmm.
I'll say, okay, I know that this goddess is associated with spring, but what are her preferred offerings?
Hmm.
Looked that up for you guys. You
Yeah.
didn't have to.
Yeah.
Every single deity, there are, the things that are associated with them. There are the offerings. And that doesn't mean that if you feel like they should have a different offering, or if you don't have any of the things that they like, you can almost always just offer from spirit and be fine.
Yeah. And
Very
it's
few of them demand human sacrifice.
and the thing is, I, for example, with my Mercury and Fortuna altar, everybody on their cousin told me, Mercury loves climbing plants. He loves climbing plants. So I did have a climbing plant on that window. And that climbing plant was covering the whole uh, window treatment. Um, and when I put Mercury on that window, the plant was killed instantly. Only on the Mercury side. So I'm
Oh,
like,
that's
huh.
interesting.
So I took out the plant, put in a spider plant. You can tap dance on top of a spider plant and you won't kill it. He killed it. Then I hang a fern on the ceiling. Half of that fern died, the Mercury side. I read all the books and they all say he loved plants. There's I'm going somewhere. So I'm like, okay. And I knew it was Mercury because the side of Fortuna, it was uncanny. The plants will that half of the plant will survive.
That's wild.
It's so weird. And so I'm like, let me put fresh flowers. That's what they like.
And many
Behold,
deities like fresh flowers. Many.
behold,
Yep.
our culture, our indigenous people, there's nothing more sacred other than the smoke than flowers. So
And
Mercury
flowers are one of
probably,
my, yeah, that's one of my favorite offerings is
yeah,
it's very simple. It doesn't have to be an expensive rose. You can walk out into the field if you have one near you. I mean, I live in the country, so I
yeah,
have, I just take whatever's in season. If the
yeah,
lilacs bloom, then I take a little piece of lilac, unless it's a thing I'm allergic to, because I'm allergic to half the things that grow in my
yeah.
yard. But yes, fresh flowers are almost always a good offering. Even a
Hmm.
bowl of water,
Yeah.
you know, it could be anything.
One of my
Um,
teachers used to say, open a bag of tea and put the herbs on a little saucer, and that's your
yeah.
offering for the day
And
or the week.
and you listened. You tried some things, they didn't work. And rather than continuing, you went, okay, this is not what
Yeah,
this deity wants from me. And you found the thing that they wanted.
yeah,
And that is one of the things about books are great. This book in particular is wonderful. But your own personal lived experience, listening to your spirit, listening to your heart, listening to the messages that deity may send you, trumps any book you are going to get.
absolutely.
It's listening to that little inner whisper that says, maybe try this. And if it doesn't work, don't get discouraged. Try something else. One of the things that I say in every single book I have ever written and in every class I give is there is no one right way. And if anybody tells you there is, they're
They're
just
wrong.
wrong. You know, they're probably trying to sell you something. Not that I wouldn't like you to buy my book, but nonetheless, there is no one right way. And if you try something, just because it worked for somebody else doesn't mean it's going to work for
For you.
you. You
Mhm.
just need to find what feels right for you. And you'll know when that happens. You can feel that little ping that says, "Oh yes, this was the right thing." In witchcraft, there's a lot of experimentation in witchcraft. You try, you know, doing ritual in a certain way. If it works for you, that's great. If it doesn't, you try it in a different way.
Mhm.
And sometimes what works on a Tuesday doesn't work on a Saturday. And if you're really, really tired, the things that you do that are more complicated, you may just have to get rid of all but the last 5% of it and go, all right, today I'm just going to light a candle and talk to the deity
And
and
that's it.
say, I'm having a really rough day. I'm sorry, I don't have anything for you, but could you please help me with the thing?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it is all about your own individual experience and what feels right to you. But if
Mhm.
you need a place to start, this is a good place to
Yeah,
start.
absolutely.
Because you can't experiment if you don't know how to start.
Everyday Witches Book of Deities, Ancient Gods for Modern Pagans by Deborah Blake. Collaborations by Blake Octavian Blair, Reverend Denise Dumas, M.A., Elise Wells Burdock Broughton, that's
Broughton. Yeah.
Broughton, and yours truly, Reverend Laura González. Llewellyn Book. Before we go to say goodbye to you, good night to you today, I just want to remind you all about Circle Podcasts. We have new show, um, Pagan Spirit Voices, airing on the second and fourth Sunday of the month. We have our regular shows that you know and love. We have Circle Talk on the first and third Tuesday of the month. We have Urban on Witches on the first and third Thursday of the month. We have Songs of the Pagan Tribe on the second and fourth Friday of the month. We have Circle of Nature on the third Sunday of the month. We have Pagans, Paganos del Mundo, Pagans of the World, Pagaos do Mundo on Spanish and Portuguese on the first and third Saturday of the month. And of course, we have Lunatic Mondays on the second Tuesday of the month. How do you remember all that, Laura? With my eyes closed, and because I am the station manager, we
I would
all,
have to have it on a piece of paper.
I mean, it's right here, it's in the vault. Um, I manage the station, so I don't know everything. Um, and all of us are volunteers. None of us get a penny for doing this work. You can listen to all the podcasts. You can download them. You can share with your friends. If you don't like our work, share with your enemies. And uh, and please keep supporting us so that we can keep producing this work. You can find my work at bluewitch.org. That is blue as the color, witch as what I am, .org. I have courses that are pre-recorded for you to go and watch and buy on demand or the whole course on tarot. I have an introductory tarot course. It's like 9 or 10 hours of me teaching. We have a spells course. It's a 12 class serious spells with oils and the elements and nature and ancestors. There are 2 years of classes, a 23 class, 2 series, 11 and 12 classes on the colonizing the goddess, talking anything and everything about Mesoamerican Cihuateteo, feminine goddesses or goddesses, if you will. And we are currently doing the first year of a 2 year. It's not serious. You can buy on demand any of my classes, but ideally you join us for the series. You save money if you do that. Tlacateteo. Now we're doing the boys. We're talking about the men. So we've done Quetzalcoatl, we've done Tlaloc, we've done Huehuecoyotl, we've done Xipetotec, all the gods, Aztec gods that are neither Aztec nor gods. They're Mesoamerican Teteo. And I also do private lessons. If you want to be my apprentice one-on-one, you can go to the learning section, fill out the little questionnaire on the bottom, and then we can talk. And obviously, I do presentations and I do tarot readings and I do cleansings if you're local and all those good things. Please support me so I can keep supporting the authors, so I can keep working with Circle Sanctuary, doing this podcast station, bluewitch.org. Deborah, because we've been talking for an hour and 10 minutes, can we please have where people can find you and very succinctly what you're doing after the month of May?
Well, every you said my website, which is deborahblakeauthor.com, and it is Deborah the long biblical way, I like to say it, Deborah. And if you put it in online, I'm everywhere. It'll show up. And if you go there, you can find the links. I'm on Instagram both as myself and as the Cranky Crone. And I'm on TikTok some, Facebook some. But I also have a Patreon where if you want to make a more personal connection, I actually have an online coven that I started recently, basically because people kept asking me to, and doing it through my Patreon seemed like the easiest way to do it. And I post spells and I talk about tarot things and all the rest of it. You can also, on my website, I do tarot readings through Zoom. There's a link for that. But my website is great because it's got all the links to everywhere and also talks about all the books. So you're like, well, I don't know. It'll give you links, things like that. I'm not actually going anywhere official. I'm going in at the end of May. I'm going to visit my parents in San Diego because they're older. My mom is 88 and my dad is 90, well, turning 92. So I try and go out a couple times a year. And then I get to go visit Mama Ocean, which makes me very, very happy because in upstate New York where I live, there is no ocean. We get a lot of lakes, great lakes and rivers and things. So yeah, I'm not traveling as much as I used to. But you can find me online anywhere. And, if you have questions about the book or about any of my other books, feel free to reach out and say, hey, what the heck were you talking about? And I'll tell you to go out and buy the books and read them. Then you'll know.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Deborah. It's always a delight to have you on the show. We certainly need like a 3-hour show. I love conversing with you. You are such a wealth of knowledge and good conversation.
Well,
So,
and I love talking to you too, because you've always got great things to add to the conversation. You're not just asking me questions. And when you do ask me questions, they're not the same questions everybody else asks me every single time. Not that those are bad questions, but yeah, we get to talk about things that I don't necessarily get to talk about
yeah,
on all the other podcasts. So I really appreciate you inviting me back. It's been
of
fun.
course. And it's now we're linked for ever.
That's
I'm in
right.
your
There's
book.
no escape. Your name, my name in the same book forever.
Every time a collaboration comes out, I hold it up and take a photo and say, "Look, Ma, I'm in a book." It's such a wonderful feeling. So thank you for having me on your book, and to everybody listening and watching. If you sat here for the whole hour and 20 minutes, thank you. We appreciate you. We love you.
We
my
do. Bless your hearts.
my name is Laura González, and until we meet again, please never forget that you are loved. Bye bye.